Alright, so in this video we're going to be adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So there's multiple ways to do it. I'm going to show you the way I prefer. That way you don't have too many ways. But if you need a different way, come talk to me and we can set you up with a version that is easier for you. So with our first example, we're going to find the sum. We have like denominators. My way is that we change these mixed numbers into an improper fraction. And so we're going to do 9 times 1, which is 9. And then 9 plus 2 is 11, so we have 11 ninths. And then we're going to change our 3 and 4 ninths, so 9 times 3 is 27, plus 4 is 31, so we get 31 ninths. And then, because they're like denominators, we can go ahead and add our numerators, so we end up with 42 ninths. And I was always taught that if you were given a problem as mixed numbers, then you should give your answer as mixed numbers. But then I also just told you not in the last video that if it's pure mathematics, that when you get into higher math, that leaving it as an improper fraction is fine. And that is fine for me as well. But this does say in simplest form. So that means that since 3 can divide into both of these, I'm going to take 42 and divide by 3. And I get 14. So we're going to have 14 over, and then 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this is one answer. Math Excel will insist on a mixed number. So Math Excel says your answer has to be the following. And so we can either do it with the 42 ninths, how many times does 9 go into 42? Or since we've already simplified it, we can do it with the 14. It's going to be the same either way. So I know 3 divides into 14 4 times. So then I have the 14. 3 times 4 is 12. So we're going to subtract, and I end up with 2. So I get 4 and 2 thirds. It's going to be, and just so that you see it, if we were to do it with the 42 ninths, 9 goes into 42 4 times, and 9 times 4 is 36. And when we subtract that, we end up with 6. So we'd have 4 and 6 ninths. But the 6 ninths is not reduced all the way. 3 goes into both of those. And so we would end up with 4 and 2 thirds. So notice it's the same whether you simplify before you make it a mixed number or whether you make it a mixed number and then simplify. But this 4 and 2 thirds is what Math Excel is going to be asking for. On your exit ticket, I'll accept the 14 thirds. So now moving on to example 10. This one is different in the fact that we have unlike denominators. Again, my suggestion is make these improper fractions. So I'm going to start with that. We're going to take 6 times 5, which is 30, and 30 plus 5 is 35. So we're going to have 35 sixths plus, and then I'm going to do 8 times 3, which is 24, and 24 plus 5 is 29. So we have 35 sixths plus 29 eighths. Now again, I cannot add unless they have like denominators. So we need to find that LCD. And so we talked about in the review video that we could do it. You have to do less simplifying if you actually find the least common. So if I do 6 is 2 and 3, and I make my factor trees, and 8 is 2 and 4, and then 2 and 2. Then I look at what's the same, right? So 2, and the 3 can go all the way out here, and 2 times 2 times 2. So what this comes down to is I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. And so 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24. So our LCD is going to be a 24. So I'm now going to have 24 in my denominator. And so I just have to ask myself, 6 times what is 24? Well, the answer to that is 6 times 4. So then I'm going to take 35 times 24. So 35 times, I said 24. 35 times 4, and I get 140. So I have 140 over 24, and then I know that it's 8 times 3 that gives me 24, so I'm going to take 3 times 29. So 29 times 3 gives us 87. And now since they have the same denominator, I can now take 140 plus 87, and we end up with 227 over 24. And I know 3 goes into 24, so I'm going to check to see if 3 goes into 227. And the easiest way is to just add them up. So 7 plus 2 is 9. 9 plus 2 is 11. 3 doesn't divide into 11, so it won't divide into 227. I just checked in my calculator. 227 divided by 8 is not a whole number. And since 2 and 3 don't divide into 227, 6 does not divide into 227. And just double checking, but 4 does not divide into it either. So I kind of checked, and we know 2 doesn't. So we've gone through and we've checked all the different factors of 24 to see if they went into 27 or 227. So since I did not find any that come out, this would be an okay answer on an exit ticket. But for Math Excel, we need to figure out, well, how many times does 24 go into 227? So I'm going to do 227 divided by 24. And so that gives me a whole number of 9. And then I know that 9 times 24 is 216. So I'm going to take this 227 minus 216. And 7 minus 6 gives us 1, and 2 minus 1 gives us 1. So we end up with 11. So we have 9 and 11 24ths. And so this would be your Math Excel answer. And I know that those are really big numbers, but at the same time, the other way, you'd have to remember whether or not you are more than, if your fraction part of the mixed number has become an improper fraction, and so then you have to carry it over into your whole numbers. And if that works for you, go for it. By all means, go for it. To me, this just works faster because I tend to work this faster more often. All right, finding the difference is just going to work the same way. We're just subtracting. So see, this is a prime example why I would do the improper fractions as opposed to the just subtracting, because here, if we just did subtraction, 1 minus 2 would mean we'd have to borrow from our whole number. So like I said, I think it's just easier to make it improper. We have 7 times 3, which is 21, plus 1 is 22, over 3, minus 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17, over 3, and then I'm going to subtract. So 22 minus 17. And so I end up with 5/3. And again, this is fine for one of my worksheets. But for Math Excel, we know that 3 goes into 5 once. And so then 5 minus 3 leaves us with 2. So 1 2/3 is our mixed number answer. All right, and so then here's another subtraction problem. Here we do not have like denominators. So again, I'm going to start by doing 9 times 9, which is 81, plus 2 is 83/9, minus 8 times 6 is 48, and 48 plus 5 is 53. So we have 53/8, right? Yep. And so now from here, I've got, I said eighths, 53/6. From here, I've got to get the like denominators. So I know that 9 is 3 and 3, and 6 is 2 and 3. And so my least common denominator is going to be 2 times 3, which is 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. And so that's my least common denominator. So I'm going to make my denominators 18. And then 9 times 2 gives us 18. So I got to take 2 times 83. 2 times 83 equals 166. And then I know that it's 6 times 3. That gives us 18. So it's going to be 53 times 3. So 53 times 3 will equal 159. And then I subtract. So 166 minus 159 leaves us with 7/18. I just double checked to make sure it's simplified. 7 doesn't go into 18 evenly and nothing goes into both of them. This is not an improper fraction anymore, so we are done at that answer. And so then that marks the end of our adding and subtracting mixed numbers. And again, if you're wanting a different method than the way that I used, just come talk to me and we can walk through it.